Good morning. Algebra 3, 8.5. Properties of determinants. 8.5 is going to be properties of determinants. And so we'll talk briefly here as we go through here. There's a couple things you have to keep in mind. When you're doing determinants and you start working with these different determinants, for instance, they start with, let's say they give you an example here. We'll go through. We'll speed through this. All right, and if B is 5, 3, 4, 2. So notice what they did there. Okay, what did they do? Okay, these it just flipped. Okay, for the two things, and if you find the determinant of it. Okay, so it's -6 plus 20. So, okay, so plus -20 or minus 20. All right, minus 20. And then, which is going to give you -26. And then 20 plus 6, positive 26. Okay, so what's the difference when all you do is flip the top and the bottom? You're going to get the inverse equation. Okay, you're going to get inverse. All right. Let's say you have this. Okay, so that's the first thing that you got to think about. So when you have that, it's just going to be the opposite. Okay, it's going to give you a negative. All right. So if you flip the top and the bottom, all right, which is what they did, you're going to get the inverse function. Okay, the inverse. So it's inverse, just like in division. Think about it. If it's inverse, you're going to get the inverse reaction, inverse answer. Okay. Then next one. If they do it this way, B is -3, 4. So the top stays the same, but the bottom is multiplied through by 3. So when you multiply through by 3, if we do this work, cross multiply again, -6, minus 20, make -26, right? What's this one going to be? -18 minus 60, -78. Well, can somebody tell me what -78 and -26 have in common? Yep, exactly, 3. So they're going to give you the exact answer. So your determinant's not going to change. Your determinant changes in the same proportion that you changed the bottom function. Okay. Number 3, third way. So when you multiply through by a function, it changes the determinant in the same function. Okay, so inverse, when you flip them, that's inverse, you're going to get an inverse function determinant. When you multiply through, you're going to get the same ratio of determinant. Third one, B, so our initial equation, -3, 1, -1, and 10, and 4. So where does that come from? All right. So let's say you did 2R1 plus R2. Okay, so 2 times this, add that, right? Well, if you do that, what are you going to get when we cross multiply? You're going to end up with, this one's going to be, again, 26. I don't know why I erase it. This one is going to be -30 plus 4. Gives you -26. So when you actually do a regular elementary work function there, operation, you're going to get the exact same determinant. All right? So that's important to remember as you go through this process. All right? Okay? So any questions? The fourth thing is if we do this work, so if you were to have if it was to be if it's going to be let me say it, if I multiply by 5, or I multiply by a -5, top and bottom, you're going to get them to be equal. So if the top row and the second row are going to be multiple of each other or kind of a facsimile of each other, watch carefully what happens. Gives you negative 60 plus 60, right? So what is that going to give you? So 60 plus 60 is 0. All right? And therefore, that's what happens when the top and the bottom are multiples of each other. When the top row and the bottom row are multiples of each other, they're going to give you a determinant of 0. All right, so that all being said, what we're trying to do is just practice through some of these problems. So let's do a problem together. All right, example number 1. Example 1. And what we're looking to do, 1, negative 3, negative 2, 0, 4, negative 1, 2, 2, negative 1, 4, 2, 1, 0, 1, 5, 3. All right, so now we're going to try to find determinant B, okay? So what's our first step? First step, let's get, if we can, let's see if we can get rid of something, because remember, it won't change our determinant, remember that. So 3R1 plus R2 and 2R1 plus R3. Okay, so let's do that math and see what we get. So 3R1. All right, so obviously R1 stays the same. So 3R1, so 3 times 1, right, gives me 0. 6 plus 2 is 8. Negative 3, positive 1. 0, 1. So far, so good. Then the next one, 2R1. So 2, 2, 0, 4. So 3, negative 3, gives you negative 1, 0, 5. Did I make a mistake here? Oh, sorry, I'm sorry. 2 times 1 is, this is 0, my fault, 0. All right, next is the last one, 0, 4, 1, 3. All right, so now we get there. That's good because now what happens is we can eliminate a row, right? We can eliminate a row with that 1 for our determinant using cofactor. Well, but we got to get a little bit further. Let's see if we can get a 0 here. Because if we can get a 0 here, then that eliminates these two, right? So that'll help as we go. So we're going to eliminate twice, and that gets us down to easy math that we can do, okay? So what do we do here? Notice 8, 1 and 1, right? So this is R2 plus negative 1R, R4, okay? So negative R2 plus R4, okay? So I'm going to write that right here. So R1s are going to stay the same, 1, 2, negative 1, 0. R2 is going to stay the same, 0, 1, 0, 3, 0, 5. That's staying the same. Now, here's where it changes. 0, 0. Negative 8, positive 4 gives me 4. Negative 4, sorry. Negative 1 times 1 is going to give me a negative 1, so plus gives me 0, and then negative 1, 2, right? So now, watch carefully. Once we get it to there, now we can do our determinants, okay? So once we get that information done, we can go through the process of doing cofactors. Okay, so the first cofactor we're going to do is this column, okay? This first column, which gives us, it's 1, 1, right? So it's 1, negative 1, so 1, right? And then negative 1 to the 1 plus 1, okay? Leaving us what? What's left? When I take this here, what's left? All right. 8, 1, 1, 3, 0, 5, negative 4, 0, 2. Okay? Now, the next ones technically are plus 0, plus 0, plus 0, right? I add 3 zeros, right? Technically, but in reality, they go away, right? Now, I'm left with this. So now what do I do? Once again, I pick this row. So I keep my negative 1 to the 1 plus 1 times 1. Now, I'm going to use this row right here, right? So what am I left with? Okay, so it's going to be big parentheses 1, and then where is it? 1, 2, right? So it's going to be 1, negative 1, 1 plus 2, right? And what am I left with when I do that? 3, 5, negative 4, 2, plus 0, plus 0, because see, plus 0 and plus 0. Now, can I do this math work? Sure can, very easily. All right, 6 minus minus 20, so, all right. And then I have all this. So this becomes positive, right? So that's positive. And this is what? Negative. So negative 1, 6 plus 20, negative 26. Okay? So, doesn't seem like it's so difficult, right? But it's doable. So once again, you start with getting rid of as many of these to get a row where it gets rid of our zeros. So you find your determinant. Before you can find your determinant, you try to cancel out and get rid of as much as you can, okay? Using your elementary rules, all right? Any questions on that? All right, so let's try another one. Let's try one more, and then I'll let you go, okay? All right, example 2. Example number 2, 3, 4, 2. 1, 8, 0, negative 2, negative 12, negative 1. Okay, so we're looking for our determinant there, okay? So what's the first step? Okay, first step, I'm going to divide through by 1, this here, right? I want to get rid of this one, okay? So what's going to leave me? 3, 1, negative 2. And I have to keep that 4 all the way through, okay? So if I take a 4 out, okay? All right, I take a 4 out, keep this 4 out here. So it's gonna be 4, it was, so I'm taking out the 4, so 1, 4, or 1, 2, sorry, 1, 2, negative 3, 2, 0, negative 1. Now what? So if I interchange my 2 rows, okay, if I interchange 2 rows, row 1 and row 2, and the reason I'm doing that is I'm going to try to get rid of something here. So what I'm going to do, what will happen is, interchange those rows, is going to be negative 4, all right, 1, 2, negative 3. Oh, sorry. Yeah, 1, 2, negative 3. 3, 1, negative 2. So it changes the sign of my determinant. Remember that, 2, 0, negative 1. So when I took out 1/4, when I did the r to the 4th, that changed the sign, the determinant by 4, by a level of 4. When I switch 2 rows, when I just flip-flop 2 rows, it changes the sign, it reverses the sign. Remember those four characteristics that we talked about at the beginning. When I flipped a row, When I flipped a row, it changed the sign. Okay, when I flipped a row, it changed the sign. When I divided through by 4, when I divided by something, when I divided by something, it changed the determinant by that same amount. Okay, that's 2, right? So you have to remember those 4 concepts because that's going to make a difference. The third one was when I did a 2R1 plus R2 function. When I did that, it did not change it. Did not change. And then the last one is it changed. It made it zero. Made it zero when they were the same. They were multiples of each other. Okay. Just remember all those 4 things. Now, so let's get back to our problem. So that's why here we divided by 4, right? We divided R. Okay, 1/4 R, right? So by doing that, we're going to multiply by 4 on the outside. And then when I just flipped my rows, I made it negative. Now what do? Now I want to get rid of your signs, your rows, right? So I want to get rid of these 2 rows right here. These 2 I want to make zeros. So how do I make those zeros? R1, so the top one, 3R1 plus R2. And the bottom one, 2R1 plus R2. So negative and negative, sorry. So it's the opposite sign. So now remember, when we do a R1 and R2 through, what happens? It doesn't change the sign. So we can do that without having to add a sign to the outside. So I'm going to write this back over here, -4. And what do I get? 1, 2, -3. And then, so -3 times 1 times 0 gives me 3. Gives 0. -3 times 6, -6 plus 1, -5. -3 minus that is positive 9. 9 minus 2 is 7. -2 times 1 gives me 0. 2 times 2 is 4 and 0. So that's going to give me -4. 2, -6, or positive 6 plus -1. So it's going to be a minus or a positive 5. So now we're there. Now what? So watch carefully. Here we go. Keep our -4. And then what? Okay, what can we do? Well, we can do it without having to do all that. Wait, what do we do next? We can get rid of this. How do we get rid of this one? Made a mistake, hold on. 5, 7, yeah. Then 0, 4, 5, yeah. All right, so now what? What do we do next? Plus R3. So what are we going to get next? If I were to get to that point, now what? So our next step is our next step, and I missed a step right here. So before we do that, let's write this back here. 1, 0, 0, 2, -3. So now what we want to do next is we want to try to get this row to reduce some, all right? And so how do we reduce it? Okay, so our next thing, R3 minus R3 plus R2. If we do that, we're left with minus 4R, 1, 2, -3, 0, -1, -2, 0, 4, -4, and a 5. Now what? If we negate this and make these positive, we make these positive, what happens? Well, we negate it, taking out the -1. So we're going here, and all we're going to do is negate row 2. And in doing so, it becomes 4, 1, 2, -3, 0, 1, 2, right? And 0, -4, and 5. Now what? Do you see anything we can get rid of? The next thing we want to get rid of is this 4. If we can get rid of this 4 by using this 2, right? Here we go. R2R1 plus R3, and you're left with 4, right? Right? 4, and then 1, 2, -3, 0, 1, 2. Watch carefully. 1. There we go. 1. So 2 times 1, so 0, right? Okay. Oh no, we can't do that. You got to do it. Sorry, 4R2. You have to do it 4R2 because we need to get rid of here. And if we do it here, it'll add to this. So 4 times 1, 4 times 0 is 0, right? 4 times 1 is 1, right? 4. So we're going to get this to be 0. 4 times 2 is 8, plus 5 is 13. I'm sorry, 4 times 2, which is negative. 4 times 2 is negative, and that's going to give me a -3. And so now what happens next? So watch, look at what we have. 1, so we're left with 4, right? -1, 1 plus 1. 1 minus 3, 0, 2. Well, what does that give me? -3 minus 0, right? So 4 times a -3 gives me a -12. So essentially, you have to go through and work carefully and efficiently as you can through that. All right? We'll do some more of these on the board, but just review your 4 rules. Anytime you flip a row, if you move a row, you change the sign out front. If you divide through by a whole number, if you just divide through by a -1, you have to negate it. You change the sign out front. If you do 4R plus 3 or R2, whatever, does not change it. If they're multiples of each other on the way down, then it is going to become a 0 determinant.